morning, church. It's great to have you here in the house of the Lord this morning. You guys ready to worship? People to stand if you would be able to. That would be great.
Heavy cross
morning? So great to see you guys here. I read this to the first service, and have you guys ever been through a battle? Anybody here? No? No one's ever been through a battle? I'm the only one. Oh, good. There's a few people. I am normal, kind of. All right. And so this week, I felt like I was just going through this crazy battle. And I woke up on Wednesday morning, and the Lord gave me these verses, and I just wanted to share with you them. They're from 2 Chronicles 20. And it is the story of Jehoshaphat where he is under attack. And he did multiple things when he was under attack. And the first thing that he did was he sought inquiry from the Lord. The second thing that he did is the people fasted. They fasted before the Lord. They cried out to him, and they worshiped him before the victory. Guys, that can be so hard. And I don't know if any of you are just walking through a battle today. I just want you to press into the Lord. Press into the Lord and worship him before the victory is won, because the victory is won. The cross and the stone that is rolled away, through that the victory is won. Amen? Amen. It says in 2017, 2 Chronicles 2017, do not be afraid or discouraged. Go out and face them tomorrow, and the Lord will be with you. Verse 18 says, and they bowed their face down before the Lord and fell in worship. God, we love you. We thank you so much for your word. We thank you for the promise of your word, the encouragement in your word, and the truth of your word. So God, we just press into you this morning. We worship you. We honor you. And God, I just pray that we put all of our trust in you this morning, because you are good. We love you in this place. We worship you in this place. In the name of Jesus, amen. Amen. Well, good morning again, church. Why don't you turn and greet your neighbor with a hug or a handshake? will remain. I will rejoice. I will declare God is my victory and He is here. And this is my prayer in the harvest, when favor and providence flow. I know I'm filled to be emptied again. The seed I've received, I will sow. Psalm 27:3 says, though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though a war break out against me, even then I will be confident. And God, I thank you. I thank you that we can be confident in you. I think we can be confident, God, in what you've done on the cross for each and every one of us. We just love you and we just worship you here in this place. He is so worthy of our praise. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. You're worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. So worthy of every breath we could ever breathe, with every air. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe, with every air, with every air. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes and wonder, and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart, and lead me in your love to those around me. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Psalm 9:10 says, those who know your name trust in you, for you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek you. Father, that is my prayer this morning for each and every one of us, that we would be a people after your heart and a people that seek you. God, open our hearts for the message today. We love you in this place. In the name of Jesus, we've gathered. Amen. You may be seated, church.
Good morning, church. Good morning. I'm just excited to be up here. I'm going to share something. I shared this in the first service, and I feel like I need to share it again. But during the first service, we were worshiping. I just had this image in my head. It was an image of a valley, right, with two mountains on the side, and I was standing here, and there was an enemy standing on the other side. And this enemy was huge and strong and mighty and just intimidating. And I was thinking, your worship, I was really focusing on that enemy, and I knew what that enemy looked like. I knew what his battle tactics were. I was looking at it, and it scared me. It was intimidating. But I didn't realize that I had God who's so much bigger than the enemy standing right behind me, towering over me and towering over the enemy. And when my focus is on the enemy, that's when I'm intimidated. But when I turn my eyes and look up to God and know that Jesus is behind me and that Jesus is the only one that saves, that's when my comfort comes in. And I don't know who that's for, if that's for someone in here specifically, but that's just what I had during worship in the first service, and I just think that's such an awesome testimony, how big God is. We just serve a big and awesome God. Amen, church? Amen. All right, and we are going to continue in our time of worship. We're going to go into our time of tithes and offerings. So our gatekeepers want to come forwards. This is a time where we just give back a little bit of what God's given to us and just say, we trust you, God, with our finances. We trust you that you're going to bless and multiply our offerings and our gifts, and that you're just going to use it. So if you want to pray with me, I'm going to take this time. God, we just thank you for your mighty power, God, your glorious power. We just thank that you're a good God that loves us, and you're so much bigger than the enemy, God. We pray that you just bless this offerings and these tithes, God. Let them go out and multiply, God, as they bless the communities around us. Let this expand your kingdom, God. Let more people come to know you because of the tithes and offerings that people are giving right now, God. And just bless the giver, God, and just multiply it in their own lives as well. We just thank you for your goodness and your love. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, gatekeepers going forwards. Check out your bulletins. It's full of tons of stuff going on. We are in an exciting time here at New Life. It's Easter season that's coming up soon. So big thing is on Easter Sunday. 3 services. We have the sunrise service, then the 8:30 and 10:15 service. We encourage you guys, invite your friends, invite your neighbors, and your coworkers, and whoever you can, and just come and celebrate the risen Son with the sunrise service. And we also have stuff going on through the week. We have Kids Homes back on Wednesday night, Adult Bible Study Wednesday night, Moms Groups on Wednesday night. Next level, if you're in high school or middle school, getting plugged in Sunday nights or Monday nights. Check the bulletin for times. And we also have an Easter egg hunt coming up for Kids Zone, where we have thousands, tens of thousands of Easter eggs. It's a lot of Easter eggs out in the acres back there. And we need your help. So next Sunday, after the second service, we will be having a packing party where we can all come together as the body of Christ and pack Easter eggs for the kids. Because if it's just me and myself doing it, it's miserable. It's the worst. I need your help. So I'm begging you guys, come next week, help us pack and make it more joyful. We can do it together and just have time of fellowship and community. And also, Coffee with Everett and Shar is on Tuesday morning, and Celebrate Recovery on Thursday. And there's really something for everybody. If you're not plugged into something, find someone who looks like they know what they're doing, and they'll point you in the direction of something that you can get plugged into. So I'm just excited we're here. I believe God has you here for a reason today. He has a word for you. So let's just continue in that time of worship.
And there's something about the way your sun shines on my face. It's a love so true, I can never get enough of you. This feeling can't be wrong. I'm about to get my worship on. Take me away.
Bless the Lord to the kids and the compassion kids and keep them in your loving care. We love you, God, and yes, in Christ's name. ready for the service right here.
Let's go! Let the music play. It's time to celebrate, 'cause it's a brand new day. Let's go! We are so alive, and God is on our side. Yeah, let's go! There's revival, and it's spreading like a wildfire in my heart.
Good morning, church. It is good to see you this morning. Before we get into the message, I want to take care of a little bit of business. At New Life Bible Church, you may or may not know, but we are very supportive of our law enforcement and our firefighters and our EMTs and different things. So much so that I'm a chaplain for Winnebago Police and Fire, and I love our police officers and our firemen, EMTs, and so. With all the stuff going on around us, we need to be praying for them more and more. We have several within our congregation in praying for their safety and all that they go through on a daily basis. We've had some tragedy here in our community in the past week. As a matter of fact, someone from our congregation has lost their cousin with a trooper that was hit here just outside of Freeport. And we just want to lift up our police officers, and we did this in the first service also, and all of those our public servants who take care of us and protect us, and not only just our community, but those in our church especially. So let's just pray. Pray with me as we just remember them and lift them up. God, we just come before you. We are thankful that we live in a country that has people who are willing to risk their lives for us and to serve and protect. God, we lift up all of our police officers and firemen and all those who work for our small communities to Rockford and Freeport and around our areas. And God, we lift up the families of those who have died recently. And we just lift them up, God, and we pray for peace. God, we don't understand why things like this happen so often, but we're praying for peace for our communities and the law enforcement, and we just ask that you would bless them. God, we love you. We thank you that you are a God that loves us here, and we just ask your protection upon the police officers and firefighters and EMTs that are among us. And God, we just lift them up to you, and we thank you for them and their service in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Today is week 2 in the last week of our March Madness series. We are moving into Easter. Easter is rapidly approaching, and I have to admit, I haven't been this excited about an Easter service series than I have in this one that's coming up. It's got a simple title. It's called Why. Why. That's it. And I'm going to deal with it over like 4 weeks. We're going to go 2 weeks before Easter and the week of Easter and then the week after on the same series called Why. And I'm going to encourage you to be here for those. If you have friends, family, make sure you invite them to watch it online, because I believe God has some really good things for us in our Easter series. But I believe God has some good stuff for us today. I'm going to be preaching in a little different style than I normally do. Normally, if you're around New Life, you know that I pick out a scripture and I tear it apart and then I have a bunch of supporting scriptures around it. Today I have a long scripture that we're going to just dig into, and one extra to support as we close it down and as we go our ways for the week. But it is March Madness, and everybody's excited about basketball. Not everybody, but a lot of people. Jan Honeycutt's probably not. But most of us are watching basketball and excited about all that's going on. And last week we talked a little bit about it and about the need to work out and about to get into the game. We talked about how players work hard all year round to get into their sport and to play their game, to get their chance to shine and to make the team better. And today we're going to expand on that a little bit as we go on. During March Madness, if you watch any basketball, you notice that you'll see teams that maybe have 7 or 8 players that play a lot. Those are the ones who are starters, and the others that sub in and out to take the starters out. And we all watch them, and we're like, oh, they're awesome, and look how great they are, and all these different things. But I want you to know there's 7 or 8 other guys or females, depends on what sport you're watching, that are sitting on the bench. They're the ones doing this. Great job. Oh, did you see that 3? All kinds of fun stuff if you watch. Those are the ones that don't get in the game, and when they do get in the game, they are pumped. They don't care if they're up 20 or down 20 or down 100. They just want to get in and play. But those guys are the ones you don't see, and we don't talk about them. We don't even think about them very often. But they are the ones who are the valuable players on the entire team too. I want to give you a little illustration about where we're going. It's not all about sports, but it's going to lay the foundation of us and how it relates to the church in the kingdom of God. And I want you to give you an illustration. Last year, our Winnebago basketball team went downstate. We had a good team. We had a bunch of good players, and so much so that my son Jared was a junior last year, and he didn't get much playing time. He didn't get on the court very much. But I want you to know that that team wouldn't have been as good, not because he's my son, without him as they were with him. None of you, very few of us, got to see him on the floor because he didn't play much, and he was sitting on the bench watching, and he'd clap and high five and all that. But what happens is that kid was the 6-foot, 225-pound football guy who had to go against the 6'9" Division I basketball guy in practice every single day. And it was his job to make that 6'9" guy better. And he worked every day, 5 days a week, and he worked, and he worked, and he sweated, and he got jacked in the face by the big kid's elbow. He did all these different things to make the team better. And sometimes we forget about those guys. Sometimes we forget about the ones who are out there to make the team better. We forget about the ones who have a role in making the team better. Sometimes we forget they may be freshmen or sophomores. They might be playing up. They might be injured or hurt, unable to play. But we must remember that in sports and even in the kingdom of God, every member of the team is crucial to the team's success. And that goes for the church too. Today we're going to look at a long scripture that points us in a similar direction. But we're going to look in the Old Testament. I want you to turn with me to 1 Samuel 30. Turn to 1 Samuel 30. Put your finger there in your paper Bible. If you got it on your phone or electronic device, turn with me to 1 Samuel 30 and keep it there, because we're gonna go all through 1 Samuel 30. And if you don't have your Bible or electronic device that has a Bible app on it, it'll be up here over my head as we go. This is a story of David in a battle that took the entire team to win. And we're going to talk about that as we go on. But I want you to start out in 1 Samuel 30, verses 1 through 6. When you got it, say, got it, PT. Got it. You with me today? Kind of quiet out there. We'll get going. 1 Samuel 30, 1 through 6 says this. There's a lot of big words in there. Bear with me as we go through them. Just pretend that I pronounce them right if I don't. David and his men reached Ziklag on the 3rd day, and now the Amalekites had raided the Negev and the Ziklag. They attacked Ziklag and burned it, and have taken captive the women and all who were in it, both the young and old. They killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. And David and his men came to Ziklag. They found it destroyed by fire, their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. Verse 4, so David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. 2 of David's wives have been captured. The one, Ahinoam of Jezreel, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord, his God. So what we have here is we're going to stop there and we're going to continue on a little bit, but we're going to go through it and explain what's happening here. Here we have David and his men coming into the area where they had left their families, their herds, and all their encampment. They're coming back, and they get back, and when they get there, the enemy, the Amalekites, had raided and burned their city down. They came back to their house. Their entire city was burnt down. All their stuff, every bit of it, was taken by the enemy. They also took the women and children captive, but they didn't kill any of them. And when we read this, I want you to put this in your mind's eye. What would you do, guys, if you pulled into your driveway and you pulled up into your town in your driveway and you looked and your house was gone, your family was gone, your kids were gone, your big screen TV, your dogs and your cats? Yeah. Everything you had was gone. You cannot say that's a good thing. You would be devastated. And here's 600 men under the leadership of David were now coming back into where they thought their camp was, and they get there, and everything is burnt down. Everything is taken. There is nothing there. No women, no children, no animals, none of their stuff. Everything was gone. And they get there, and it was burned and plundered, and they were heartbroken. They were distraught. They felt defeated. And they were mad. They were tired from what they'd just come through and all that they'd had previously that they'd had to do. And when they got there, what did they do? The first thing that normally happens, the 600 men decided to turn their anger towards who? The leader. And so David's sitting there going, and he's in his distraught. He lost his wives in it. He lost all of his stuff too. And his town was plundered. And all of his people's stuff was taken. And now all of a sudden, they're looking at him going, we are going to stone you to death because of what we are going through. They were mad. And we sit there and go, well, they're just bad people. No, you would be mad too. And what happens is, it says that David found strength in his God. Now, I want you to understand, if I'm standing up here and I made all of you mad in here, and you're all standing before me saying, we're going to kill you, Pastor Tim, the first thing I probably would do is going, there's an exit there. There's an exit there. Who am I faster than? What door can I get to quicker? That's not what he did. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He didn't try to get away from the 600 mad people who were ready to come after him. He turned to his God, and he trusted that God had a plan. He trusted that God was still in control, and he trusted that things were going to work out. That's a man of great faith. Let's see what he did. In 1 Samuel 30, verse 7 through 10, it says this. We're just continuing on. Yeah, we're good to go. And David said to Abiathar, the priest, and the son of Amalek, bring me the ephod. Abiathar brought it to him. And David inquired of the Lord, shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them? Pursue them, he answered. You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue. David and the 600 men with him came to the Bezor ravine, where some stayed behind. For 200 men were too exhausted to cross the ravine, but David and 400 men continued the pursuit. So now we're reading this. It's getting good now. So now we just come through all this stuff, the devastation, the loss of everything, the wives and the livestock and everything's gone. And now we come to a point where David was like, now what do we do? So what does he do? He turns to God and he inquires of the Lord and he says, what am I going to do? He didn't gripe about it. He didn't give up and say, forget it, let's just turn and go. He said, what are we going to do? So we turned to God. He said, what am I going to do? I'm going to get counsel from the Lord. What should I do? Should I go after them? Should I just chill out here and wait for you to do something? Should I go get our stuff? Pursue them? And God responded, pursue them and you will overtake them. And David's like, let's go. Instead of running, instead of hiding, instead of doing whatever, he said, I'm going to take my 600 men and we're going to go. So, hey guys, let's go. And the 600 people looked at him and kind of said like, wait a second. 200 of us are tired. 200 of us are worn out. 200 of us need a break. They were exhausted from all they had previously gone through. And they were tired. And now some of us are sitting here going, well, that's stupid. God just said, go and get them. David inquired of the Lord, and he said, we're going to go get them because we can take them out. We can beat them. And the 200 of you, and now we're going to stay back, and we're going to go 400, and there's thousands of them? This is nuts. Not really. Those 200 people were tired. They've gone through a lot. They needed to rest. It was their time to take a break. So what did David do? He didn't say, shut up, get in line, let's go. He said, rest. I'm going to take the 400, we'll be back. Let's go. So he took the 400 and he left. So now we're in 1 Samuel 30, verse 11 through 17. Now it gets to be some good stuff. You ready? It said, they found an Egyptian in a field and brought him to David. They gave him water to drink and food to eat. Part of a cake of pressed figs and 2 cakes of raisins. They didn't really like the guy that much if they gave him raisins. He ate and was revived. I think I would have said I'll pass. But anyways, I'll just stay here and die. Keep your raisins. Not really. He ate and was revived, for he had not eaten food or drunk any water for 3 days and 3 nights. The guy was in bad shape. David asked him, to who do you belong and where do you come from? He said, I am an Egyptian, the slave of an Amalekite. My master abandoned me when I became ill 3 days ago. We raided the Negev and of the Ketherites and the territory which belonged to Judah and the Negev of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag. David asked him, can you lead me down to this raiding party? He answered, swear to me before God that you will not kill me or hand me over to my master, and I will take you down to them. He led David down, and there they were, scattered over the countryside, eating, drinking, and reveling because of the great amount of plunder they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from Judah. David fought them from dusk until evening the next day, and none of them got away except for 400 young men who rode off on camels and fled. Now, here we are. David and the 400 men, the 200 men stayed back. David and the 400 men, they're heading out to go find out where their wives and their families and where all their stuff was, and they were going to go take it back. So they're heading on their way, and they come across this man in the field who was a slave to the enemy. He was in bad shape. He hadn't had water. He hadn't had food in 3 days. He was in such bad shape that his master says, you're not worth it. I'm going to leave you here to die. Because he was a burden. David saw him and fed him and gave him water. In return, the man gave David and his men directions to the enemy's camp. I read that and I'm like, this is awesome. The enemy's burden became David's blessing. Think about that. God had a plan to the point of putting a slave who was about to die in David's path so that David could come up to him and inquire of him, where is this? And the man said, I'll take you right to him. Just don't tell on me. As long as we're cool with that, I'll go and take you wherever you want to. I'll take you to where they're at. Just don't give me up. Don't tell them, and I will lead you to the path of victory. The man led David and the army to the camp of the enemy, and what were they doing when they got there? They were partying. Why were they partying? Because they had all the stuff. They took all the plunder. They took all the herds. They took all the money. They had the families, and they had everything there, and they just had a big victory. They just burnt down their enemy's camp. And now all of a sudden they're there, and they're excited, and they're partying because they are the winners. They were partying with all the stuff they took from David and his people. So what did David do? David crashed the party. He went after them and watched his 400 men fight them for hours. And what happened? Victory. The battle was won. Then we move on to 1 Samuel 30, verse 18 through 20. It says this. This is good. I love it. I said that last 3 times, but I love, when you read Scripture, I say this a lot. People go, I get bored reading Scripture. This is not boring. This is good stuff. It says this. In 1 Samuel 30, 18 through 20, it says, David recovered everything the Amalekites had taken, including his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, young or old, boy or girl, plunder or anything else they had taken. David brought everything back. He took all the flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock, saying, "This is David's plunder." The enemy took everything David had. Took all his wives, his children. It took his stuff. It took his personal herds, and it took his people's stuff and wives and children. The leader, understand this, the leader had responsibility over everyone, and everything and everyone that was under David was gone. And what does God do? God leads them back. They battle, they win the victory, and David recovered everything the enemy had taken away. Nothing was missing. Nothing was gone. And they got their families and everything, plus more. Some of us here, the enemy is taking stuff away from us. Maybe the enemy is taking your joy. Maybe the enemy is taking your peace. Maybe the enemy is taking a family member. Maybe the enemy is taking a relationship. Maybe the enemy has done things that have brought you down and you feel like you've been defeated. I want you to know this. God is in the business of restoring what you had plus giving you more. He did it for David. He can do it for you. He got his family and everything plus more. 1 Samuel 30, 21 through 22 says this. Then David came to the 200 men. Then David came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow him and who were left behind at the Besor ravine. They came out to meet David and the people with him. As David and his men approached, he greeted them. Now, stop there for a second. All of a sudden now, David's coming back to the encampment where everything was taken. And he's bringing back the 400 that went with. He's bringing back the wives and the families. He's bringing back the plunder. He's bringing back the herds. And he's bringing back the extra. And he's coming back. And the 200 that were tired and worn out and that were there, they saw what was happening. And they're like, look, here they come. They were excited to see their families. They were excited to see the stuff being returned to them that was taken from them. And there was an excitement that was happening. And we see them, and they're greeting them. But in verse 22, it says this, but all the evil men and troublemakers among David's followers, and there's always evil men and troublemakers. You knew that? There's troublemakers. The evil men and the troublemakers among David's followers said, because they did not go out with us, we will not share with them the plunder we recovered. However, each man can take his wife and his children and go. We don't want your wife and kids, go. But of the plunder and the return of the herds and the stuff that was theirs originally and the extras, they said, that's not yours. You stayed here, dude. You're on your own. Here's your wife and kids. Bye. We're keeping all the stuff. It went from a time of joy and restoration to a time of grumbling, complaining, and division. The troublemakers were mad that the 200 didn't go with. They said, take your family, but none of the stuff. And David had an answer. Because those that were stayed back had to stay back because they had a job to do. And David knew that they were important. He said this, David replied, no, my brothers, you must not do that with what the Lord has given us. He has protected us and handed over to us the forces that came against us. Who will listen to what you say? The share of the man who stayed with the supplies is to be the same as that of whom who went down to the battle. All will share alike. David made the statute and ordinance for the Israel and that day to this. Then David arrived at Ziklag and sent some of his plunder to the elders of Judah who were his friends, saying, here is a present for you from the plunder of the Lord's armies. David said, now, if you think, to the 400, he said, if you think you're going to keep their stuff, you're wrong, because you missed out that it takes everyone to make this succeed. It takes everything to make what we did succeed. We needed those 200 to stay here and to keep the place secured. We needed them to stay here and to take care of what needed to be taken care of. We needed them to be here to do their thing. And now they did their role, and we're coming back, and you don't want to give them what is rightfully theirs? We're in this together. And if we're in this together, we're going to be stronger, and we're going to make a bigger difference, and we're going to make a bigger impact. He's saying, we're in this together. And some of you are singing in the High School Musical song, we're all in this together. That's what Amy wanted to sing. I said no. They did their job. Miss Volkerts is going to give me lessons afterwards. Course teacher, Winnebago. They did their job. They protected their supplies, and they held down the camp. They did what they needed to do. They did what they needed to do. They were important to the entire roster, if we can say it that way. Without them, they wouldn't have been able to have something to come back to, because who knows what would have happened then. So now they're coming back, and he says, here's your stuff plus more. We're in this together, and we're going to make a difference, and they're stronger together. As I read this, you're sitting there going, what's this got to do with anything, Pastor Tim, except for a great story? Well, I want to encourage you to go back and reread it, because what I encourage you to do is it'll give you wisdom in making decisions from now on out. It's a great job. The first thing I have is this. It is a great job. It does a great job of explaining leadership. And you're sitting there going, I'm not a leader of anything. I'm not really a leader at the church. I'm not really a leader at my workplace. I really don't do much for my family. And I'm not much a leader in my community. So I'm not really much of a leader. I want you to understand, if you are taking a breath in this building, you are a leader. You are a leader. And God is trying to instill in you leadership qualities through this message, I believe. You are a leader in your family. You are a leader in your workplace. You are a leader in your community. You are a leader in your grocery store, because everything you do is leadership, in my opinion. And this is a great story of leadership, teamwork, and God's provision. Number one is David had a tough job to do when he led the men. They were crushed. They were crushed by the loss of their families and all they had, and the men were not happy. But he had to lead through adversity. And the only way you can lead through adversity, and the only way you can lead, period, but I'm going to just use adversity right now. The only way you can lead through adversity is to inquire of the Lord. Too many people are trying to make too many decisions without any godly influence. Too many people try to take too much information from too many people. Does that make sense? You follow where I'm going there? Way too often, we want to hear what other people have to say. I hear people come up and they'll say, well, Pastor Tim, I talked to 4 other people, and what do you think about this? Well, if you ask them, and I'm number 5, go with the 4 you had before. And the actual real answer is this. Did you inquire of the Lord of what to do? Well, no, I'm just trying to get people's opinions. The only opinion that matters is God's. Maybe you have someone godly around you that can give you encouragement, but I encourage you to, number 1, inquire of the Lord yourself. My marriage is hard. I don't know what to do. Have you inquired of the Lord? Raising these kids is driving me nuts. Been there, done that, said that. Did you inquire of the Lord? My job sucks. Yep, probably. Did you inquire of the Lord? I don't like standing in line at the grocery store. Did you inquire of the Lord? That sounds goofy. But you see what I'm saying? We need to be a people that inquire of the Lord. If we want to see our church succeed, if we want to see our community succeed, if we want to see the kingdom of God grow and make a difference in our area, we need to be a people who, when the first thing, when adversity hits, we inquire of the Lord. That's number 1. Number 2 takeaway, talking about March Madness, and that takeaway is teamwork wins battles. Teamwork wins battles. Some will battle. Some will rest. Now I want you to understand what rest is. Some of you are like, hey, I'm in that rest category, PT. I'm in that rest category. Take me off the court, put me on the bench. I want you to understand that. Just because those 200 were in rest mode didn't mean they were in space out mode. You follow? They had work to do. They had things that they had to accomplish. I like this illustration. I use it in the first service. I'll use it here. This church has been around for 20 plus years now. We're just a little over 20 years old. And as we started out, we had very few gray-haired people in our congregation. Now wait. Listen. We have grown and we have matured. Now we have infants to elderly, okay? That's healthy. That's a healthy church. And some of the ones who 20 years ago weren't quite so old now are starting to become older, and they're resting. They did a lot of work. There are people that did a lot of work to set the foundation for this facility. And I'm not talking about the concrete. I'm talking about the spiritual foundation. They did a lot of work. They worked hard. And now they're in that resting mode. But that doesn't mean they're done. You know what that means? They're praying for you every single day. You know what that means? They're the ones that write you letters and encourage you. They're the ones who are building you up when you walk in. They're the ones giving you a bulletin and giving you a hug. Resting doesn't mean you stop. Resting means you take care of business and other people step up to do some of the battles that they've already been through. Church, as I look out, there's some of us in here who need to be ready to go to battle while some rest. Maybe you're here and you're going, I don't know what the battle is. There's ministry for you all around. You are leaders and you are ministers. We all have jobs to do. We are all important in our job. 1 Corinthians 12, 4-7 says this: there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but the same God works in all of them in all men. Now to each one the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. What that saying is, we all have our job to do. No one is more important than the other. Now back to our illustration of March Madness. Now I want you to understand the team who wins out of the 68 teams that came together to play in this tournament, the team that wins, when it's all said and done, 20 years from now, everybody on the team, from the number one star player to the last guy off the bench, is going to be able to say this phrase. Are you ready? He's going to be able to say, I was on the NCAA championship team in 2019, and I did my job to make it happen. Did you follow that? 20 years from now, you might remember the number one guy, but the number two guy through the number 15 guy, you're not going to remember their names. But they can stand up and say, I did my role so we could win the 2019 NCAA championship. I want you to understand this. We are part of something much bigger than March Madness. We are part of the church. The only entity on the face of the earth that can offer hope, love, joy, peace, salvation, and forgiveness through our Savior, Jesus Christ. We have a huge responsibility. We can see huge victories. It comes down to this. Let's do our part. When the worship team come forward as we get ready to close in worship today, as we get ready to go out. But I want you to know this before you walk out of here, before you leave and go on your way, and as you take on the next week, and as we lead into our Easter series, I want you to understand this. God has a job for you. God has a place for you to lead. And it comes down to we're in this together. And if we're in this together and we work together as a well-functioning body of Christ, we will do one thing. You want to know what that one thing is? Make Jesus known. Make Jesus known. And if we do that, We're going to see salvations. We're going to see families changed. We're going to see communities healed. In church, that's what we're here to do, is to make Jesus known. No matter what your role is today, you might be sitting here thinking to yourself right now, and this is my challenge for you as you go through your week. What is your role? Not just at New Life Bible Church, but in the church universal in this area. Or maybe in missions and around the world. I don't know. But what is your role? And what did God give you gifting to do to make a difference? What can you do? Are you in the rest mode, or are you in the go into battle mode? If you feel like God's calling you to be in the battle mode, get in the game. Do what God's called you to do. Inquire of him and say, God, what do you want me to do? Because he will tell you. And we will make Jesus known in a greater way. And we'll see people come to know Jesus as Savior. If you're here and you haven't made Jesus your Savior, you've not said those words, Jesus, I want to make you my Lord and my Savior. I want you to forgive my sins. I want to live with you forever. Don't leave this place without saying those words. I'd be a total miss if we let you walk out of here without saying those things. And then once you say those things, inquire of God and say, what do you want me to do? So before we start to worship and close with worship, I want to stand. I want to pray for you as we get ready to worship and as we get ready to take on our week. Because we have a great week ahead of us, don't we, church? God's got a plan. Let's pray. God, we just come before you. We're so thankful for how good you are to us. And God, we want to make Jesus known in our area and around the world. God, help us do that. Help us get into the game. Help us work together to make a difference for the kingdom of God. God, we love you. We thank you for how good you are to us. We ask you to bless us, and we thank you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You make it easy to love you. You are good and you are kind. You bring joy into my life. You make it easy to trust you. You have never left my side. You
Jesus, all I want is you. Wherever you lead me, Lord, whatever it costs me. Oh, all I want is you. Jesus, all I want is you. You are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. There's a million reasons to trust you. Nothing to fear, for you are by my side. I'll follow you anywhere. Follow you anywhere. Oh, I'll follow you anywhere. I'll follow you anywhere.
God, we will follow you anywhere, and we thank you for what you've done in this place today. We thank you for what you're going to do this week. And God, I pray that everyone who is hearing my voice right now, God, has your peace. God, I pray for peace in your people. I pray for joy in your people. I pray as we go out, we would feel your presence throughout this week. Protect your people as they go. We love you for who you are, for what you do, and God, we just give you praise for being our God. We thank you, Jesus, for the sacrifice you made for each and every one of us. We honor you in this place. We give you praise. We love you, God. We give you praises. In the name of Jesus we pray. And all God's people said, amen. Give God a hand clap as you go out. See you next week, church.